Welcome to the Warrior Mind podcast. This is where mental strength, emotional mastery, and human potential meet real life. I'm Greg Swanson, and each week we strip away the noise, sharpen the mind, and train the inner warrior required for modern life. Let's get into today's podcast. The most dangerous stage of burnout is not when you can no longer perform. It's when you're still performing well enough to believe nothing is wrong. Welcome back to the Warrior Mind podcast. This is Greg Swanson, and today we're going to be talking about a concept called performance debt. I'm sure we all are well familiar with financial debt, but this goes more physical in nature. So here's what happens is you're still working, you're still training, you're still leading, you're still solving problems. Everything is going along the way you think it should. Other people even may point out to you that as an example of, you're an example of discipline, resilience, mental strength, determination, grit, all of those wonderful words that we love to hear about ourselves. But beneath those results, focus is narrowing, and it narrows slowly so you don't notice it. Recover is slowing. Patience is thinning, and relationships are receiving whatever energy remains. And this happens so gradually that we don't even notice it. The hidden cost is what's called performance debt, what I like to call performance debt. And your ability to keep going is not proof that your current way of operating is substantial and sustainable. For instance, financial debt, you keep charging, you keep charging, you keep charging. Things are going great. You're still buying this, you're still buying that, but that debt piles up, piles up, piles up. And someday the bill comes due, as it does in financial, as it does in energy and emotional with performance debt. So performance debt is really the hidden cost of still performing, right? You're still producing. Nothing appears to be broken. Internal cost is rising, such as when you put more on a credit card, and output can conceal decline. Because again, equating it to financial, you're charging, you're paying bills, you're going out to dinner, you're having a great time. Everything looks great, but internally, meaning your balance on your credit card is going up and up and up. And this output, when we are continuing to work beyond what we should be, it conceals the decline because we're doing the things, we're taking the activities, we're getting results, we're doing it, but we don't pay attention to what that decline is. And so, high performers often use continued output as evidence they are fine. And it's like, oh, I can still do this, I can still do that. But what happens is we're not aware, or the high performers are not aware of that 1% decline. It's like, oh, okay, it's close enough. And then there's a 1% and a 1. It's almost Kaizen in reverse, right? Kaizen is 1% better. This is 1% less. But output only tells us that results are still being produced, right? But it does not reveal the price being paid to produce them. And also the time it makes. Maybe you had a project that used to take you 2 hours and now it's taking you 4 hours. Yeah, you get it done, but there's a significant double in time to do it. Those are red flags we want to look out for. So the question is not only am I producing, it's what is producing these results costing me. So still performing is not the same as performing well, right? Deadlines are still met, responsibilities are still carried, training still happens, more effort is required. So we're doing those things, but it takes more effort. But because it's just a 1% more effort today than it was yesterday, we don't notice it. You don't notice it until it gets so large, just like your credit card debt, that something has to be done with it. So, a man can remain person highly functional while losing clarity, adaptability, presence, recovery, and strategic range. All of these things. We can function, but we're not going to be clear on what we're functioning. So there's a function because at some point we're on auto drive, but that doesn't mean it's effective and efficient. The same output now may require far more internal effort. Again, getting up, having a Red Bull, having coffee, whatever it is, you've depleted all your energy and you need more substance to move forward than you did 3 weeks ago. So the results have not disappeared. The efficiency, capacity, and quality underneath them have started to erode. And again, this is a slow erosion. You look at a lot of stuff in Mother Nature, the slow erosion of dirt and stuff. It just slowly goes away. Then there's the landslide. Then there's the flood. Then there's you've reached your credit limit. So these things happen slowly. I just want to really emphasize that, yeah, I'm fine. Compared to what? Compared to who you can be, or compared to who you were yesterday? Because if it's a 1% decline, you're not going to notice it. You're going to say, yeah, I'm fine. I'm still doing the same stuff, but you're not. So what performance debt actually is, it's short-term performance is protected. So we want to get the performance out. We want to get the results. Recovery is repeatedly sacrificed. Oh, I'll sleep later. I can get this done now. I'll just bring home a little bit of work and I'll make up for it. Alignment is ignored, meaning your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual alignment. Are those things in order of what makes you happy, what fulfills you? And future capacity is borrowed. So you could have additional capacity tomorrow, but you basically borrow tomorrow's capacity to do it today, such as you're borrowing tomorrow's finances to pay for today. Old expression is you're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. So we continue dip into the future. We now have a performance debt because we wake up with only 2 hours of sleep because we borrowed that from the future. We're then not able to perform the best we can at that day. And then it keeps happening and happening and happening. So that is what performance debt is, right? So performance debt is accumulated cost of repeatedly sacrificing recovery, alignment, emotional regulation, and sustainable habits to maintain short-term performance, right? The ends justify the means. Well, that's not case because these means are you, and it's costing you mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually to keep those results going. And that is not sustainable. You cannot keep borrowing from the future to get stuff done now. And soon you blow your top, you have an argument with your significant other, your boss, your coworkers, you just can't make it. You start oversleeping, you start skipping, you're drinking too much, whatever. There's so many ways to deal with it, but that's not true recovery. And so we need to make sure we build in recovery and stop borrowing from tomorrow. It's what accumulates when you keep borrowing from your future capacity to perform today. And that can be in the sign of lack of sleep. It could be in the way of things that you want to get done. So you sacrifice things that you want to get done tomorrow for something else you want to get done now. And those things you want to get done tomorrow keep getting pushed out. And when the time comes due to do them, you don't have the energy, the focus, the discipline to do it. So just like financial debt, as I've been talking about, the first transaction may feel harmless. Oh, it's only a $20 breakfast. The danger is repetition and interest. So you buy that $20 breakfast, you buy a dinner, you buy a computer, you buy this, then all of a sudden your interest is increasing on your debt. It's just not that you have debt financially, you now have interest on it. And this is what happens with performance debt. You're not only in debt, but you're paying interest on it in the long term. Performance debt begins during success because we're excited, right? We're achieving things. Oh, Ryan, I got to keep this going. Discipline masks the warning sign. Oh, I got to keep doing this. And, I'm disciplined and people depend on me. And so I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. It compensates. It competes with compensation in a sense, and it raises reinforcing the pattern. So this performance debt, when we have success, we go, here's what I did for success. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do this, 1, 2, 3. And we keep doing 1, 2, 3, but instead of doing it once a day, we do it twice a day, 3 times a day. And that reinforces that pattern. And then that success delays the recognition of what is really happening. And so there's a plus side of success. Yes, we achieved it. There's a downside of success that if we think a pinch of salt is great, a pound of salt is better. And so we have a little bit of success and we double down our effort, triple down our effort, 4 times our effort, but the success doesn't match it it doesn't correlate to it exactly. We double down our effort, we get 1.2 points of success. But we keep spending tomorrow's energy to achieve that because we're achieving success. Hey, we're great. There's nothing wrong. And in reality, that debt is piling up big time. Capable people can serve the debt no longer, right? It's skill, discipline, intelligence, and responsibility allow them to compensate, right? So when you're able to do it, when you come up with these stories, when you come up with these formulas on how to circumvent this performance debt, you'll talk yourself into it because you believe your own stories. So you create a story about, oh, it's only going to be a week, it's only going to be this, it's not that bad, I feel great. All of those are lies. You're delusional because you keep doing the same stuff and then you're going to end up in significant performance debt, which could look like burnout, fatigue, shutdown, a meltdown of some sort. Just disregarding your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. It shows up in many, many, many ways. And because others still benefit from your output, right? So others are dependent on you and you take that upon yourself to make sure that there's more and more output. That pattern is praised instead of questioned. So instead of saying, hey, you know what? You've been at it for 12 hours today for the past 3 weeks. Is that really something you want to be doing? No, instead we go, man, you're so great. How do you do it? You stay here, you're disciplined, 12 hours. My gosh, that's great. And these people all go home at 8 hours and they go home and rest and they go home and relax. But because you think they're dependent on you, you stay there at work and you keep doing more and more. The very strengths that created your success can now become the mechanisms that hide the cost because you're getting praised for what you're doing. You're doubling down on your effort. Your interest rate is increasing. You don't see it. And one day you're just going to blow up or there's this drop off the cliff where you just can't produce anymore. And people go, what happened to you? You used to be so good. And then you'll find that 10th Red Bull or no dose or whatever, and then you'll start to increase it again. But because you're not realizing how far in debt, performance debt you are. The cost shows up before collapse, right? Decisions take longer. Focus becomes harder to hold. Small frustrations create bigger reactions. Relationships receive what remains. So if you're in a relationship, whether friendship or even a marriage, and that relationship starts to show cracks by either not talking that much or getting in arguments or things that are just a lot of friction, that's because you only have a little bit, if anything, remain to give to that relationship. And your excuse is, well, I'm working all this for my family. I'm working for all this for my significant other. They need to appreciate me. No, you need to take time and readjust your energy because when that relationship goes, then it's going to be more trouble for you. So that's the price we have to pay, right? So you look at when you're making decisions, is it coming quick and easy, or do you make them and then doubt them and go for somebody else? Is focus harder to hold? All of those are just like these little tiny red flags, like yellow cards in soccer, right? Beware, beware, beware. And eventually you're going to get a red card and you're not going to be able to perform anymore at work and you're not going to be able to hold your relationships and you're going to wonder what the heck happened. All the signs are there. That's the point of this podcast, is telling you, look for these signs and be aware of how much your performance debt is adding up. The debt observable, slower physical recovery, reduced emotional presence, less adaptability, and more effort for the same results. This is observable. You can measure these if you're aware of them. If you're not and you just make excuses, well, I'll be better after coffee. I'll be better tomorrow when I get a good night's sleep. All of those things mean that you're performing out of performance debt. Those are signs, right? These are not random inconveniences. They are interest payments on operating model that is consuming capacity faster than it restores it, right? So you have a hole in the bucket, it's going out at a gallon a minute, and you're putting a half a gallon in. Pretty soon that bucket's going to wear out. And that's what you're doing here. So burnout is not the first warning sign, right? It may be the point when the warning signs can no longer be ignored. So you have burnout, it has all these different, right? A physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, focus, production, all that. All of those are little flags that are coming up. And when they all get there, when you get this red card, it is burnout. And there's not much you can do about it except for unplug, go out, go on vacation for 2 to 3 weeks, readjust your schedule, and come back again. Right? Performance debt, though, is not burnout. Debt accumulates first, and burnout is a possible consequence of this debt. So visible decline comes later. Early recognition of this preserves your capacity. So we all probably perform at some part of a performance debt a little bit each time, but we need to be aware of it, and you need to create a recovery plan. For instance, if you put in 10 hours today and you've been doing it for a couple of days, maybe you want to go to bed earlier and get 8 to 9 hours sleep to recover that. Well, I can't. No, you don't want to. You can, you just don't want to. You're making excuses to live up to this expectation of being Superman or Superwoman. So we want to make sure that we adjust our recovery time so we keep it's just like an athlete, right? You have an athlete that sprints 100 meters. He doesn't just go back and do it again, or she doesn't go back to do it again. They have recovery. When they train, they have days of recovery. They do that. They don't just go out there and run all the time, full speed. They would be burned out and they wouldn't achieve anything. That's what you're doing. You're doing every day is a 100-meter sprint. And if you start doing back to back to back to back to back sprints with shorter rest time, just think if you did on the track. Just go out and play. Go out and run a 100-meter sprint and then wait 10 seconds and do it again. You'll be slower. You won't be able to focus it. You'll stop. You'll be out of breath. All of that because you didn't recover. Same thing happens with performance debt. So here's the thing. This framing creates an earlier intervention without turning difficult weeks into a diagnosis. You don't need to wait for collapse to admit that the cost is unsustainable. Training makes the principles obvious. Stress creates adaptation. Recovery consolidates growth. Repeated overload creates compensation, and ignored signals become ignore, meaning that these are the things we have to be aware of, and these are the things we can't put a blind eye to. These are all tragic events that are about to happen. Using strength training or CrossFit is a great example of the physical part of this, right? Repeating intensity without sufficient recovery eventually degrades the output, right? So strength creates growth when paired with recovery. Same way mental strength, physical strength, emotional strength, and spiritual strength. Your best qualities become expensive. Discipline becomes self-neglect. Responsibility becomes over-functioning. Control becomes disconnection, and resilience becomes endless tolerance. So those are great qualities: discipline, responsibility, control, resilience. But when you're in a performance stuff, they express their shadow side, if you will. So we want to have discipline, responsibility, emotional control, and resilience are not the enemy. The problem is their unregulated expression when a strength is used to override every single thing that's there, carry every burden, and avoid adjustments. Strength without discernment does not remain strength. It eventually becomes a liability wearing an honorable language, like we wear this as a badge of honor that we're in burnout. We want to audit the cost beneath the results. What results am I producing? What is it costing me? Is this a way of operating sustainable? No, guaranteed. What am I pretending not to notice because of this sustainability, right? So we have this identity, and I get into that in other podcasts, but we have this identity that I'm disciplined, I'm this and that. And we will push ourselves to make sure people still recognize that part of us, when in reality, that's not a 24/7 personality trait, discipline. It's when it's necessary, when you have the energy, when you have that, and so we want to make sure that we manage that energy so that those qualities still can be strong, but they only get strong by giving rest in between them. And we can't be pretending we're strong, disciplined when we have so much performance debt that we can barely get out of bed in the morning. So recovery is not the whole solution, right? Reduce unnecessary withdrawals, restore neglect. Again, what I want to talk about is that it's just like your financial debt, right? First, you have to be aware. Here's my financial debt. Here's my interest. What got me there? And then start to back away from it. This is the same thing here with performance debt. You want to correct the misalignment. You want to restore the neglected capacity. So you need to admit, right? Admitting is the first step. Admit that you're in a performance debt. And then be okay with taking time to recover. Hydrate, nutrition, exercise, prayer, meditation, all of those things help rebuild that sustained energy within you so you're not in a performance debt anymore. Sustainable performance requires integration, pressure and recovery, discipline and discernment, responsibility and boundaries, control and connection. So if you want to see the show notes on this podcast, you can visit warriormindcoach.com. While you're over there, you can find some more useful information. And I would encourage you, if anything resonated with you on this podcast, to go ahead and book that power strategy call. We can take an audit of where you are in your performance debt, because you are in it. We all are in it. And then we can decide the proper course of action after that. Since you'll be on the internet, please follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, all under Warrior Mind Coach. Thanks for spending this time with me on the Warrior Mind podcast. Remember, your mind is not neutral. If you don't train it intentionally, it'll be shaped by the world around you. Until next time, stay strong, stay aware.